It was 3:07 a.m. when my phone rang. The room was silent except for the ticking of the old wall clock above my dresser. The sound of rain tapping against the window blended with the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. But then, I saw the light. My cell phone, face down on the nightstand, was glowing. Half asleep, I reached over and squinted at the screen. The name flashing across it froze me in place. Ethan. For a long second, I just stared at the name, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I blinked, hoping it was some cruel trick of my tired eyes. But no, the name stayed, glowing in the dim light, steady and undeniable. Ethan, my son. The same name I hadn't seen on my phone in 15 years. Because 15 years ago, Ethan had died. I couldn't move. My breath felt stuck somewhere in my chest. My first thought was that someone was using his old number, maybe a scam, maybe a glitch. But deep inside, some ancient mother's instinct, whispered otherwise. The phone kept ringing. 3 rings. And then it stopped and I exhaled, shaky, my fingers trembling. I turned the phone face down again and sat there, trying to calm the pounding in my head. It's not real, I told myself. It's just a number. It's not him. But then, before I could lie down again, it rang once more, same number, same name. Ethan calling. My throat tightened. The rain outside seemed to stop, like the world was holding its breath with me. My finger hovered above the green button, and before I could talk myself out of it, I answered. Hello? At first, there was only static, soft, distant, almost like wind moving through tall grass. Then, faintly, a sound. A whisper. Mom. I shot up from the bed. My knees hit the nightstand, knocking over the lamp. The room filled with a warm yellow glow, and my reflection in the mirror looked like a ghost. Pale, wide-eyed, trembling. That voice, it couldn't be. Ethan? I whispered, my heart in my throat. Ethan, is that you? But the line went dead, just the dial tone, cold and final. I stood there for what felt like hours, phone pressed to my ear, hoping the voice would come back. But it didn't. Ethan was only 17 when he died. A car accident. One of those freak winter nights in Colorado where the snow turns to black ice and the highways become death traps. I remember the police officer's face when he came to the door. The way his voice cracked when he said, Ma'am, there's been an accident. That night carved something out of me that never grew back. After the funeral, I couldn't sleep for months. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., convinced I heard his footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes I'd find myself sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for the sound of his car pulling up, though I knew it never would. Eventually, I moved to another town, far away from the one where Ethan's memory lived. In every street corner and grocery store, I deleted his social media accounts. I threw away his old phone, or at least, I thought I did. The morning after the call, I couldn't shake the feeling. My mind was racing, swinging between logic and fear. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe the number had been reassigned. Maybe it was just coincidence, but my gut told me otherwise. That I went to the phone company, Verizon. The young clerk, probably in his 20s, looked at me kindly but skeptically when I told him what happened. Ma'am, he said, typing rapidly, this number was deactivated 15 years ago. It's not in use anymore. I stared at him. Then how did it call me? He frowned. That's not possible. I leaned forward. But it happened. I answered it. He hesitated, glancing at his screen. Sometimes old numbers show up because of spoofing. You know, scammers using random IDs. Scammers who call me at 3 a.m. I muttered. He shrugged. It's weird, I agree. But there's no record of an outgoing call from that number in the system. My heart skipped. What do you mean? I mean, he looked up at me. That number doesn't exist anymore. It can't make calls. That night, the rain returned. Heavier this time, drumming against the roof like a heartbeat. I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone every few minutes, half hoping, half fearing it would ring again. At exactly 3 a.m., I heard something, not the phone, but a knock. 3 soft knocks. From the front door, I froze in bed. Who would be at my door in the middle of the night? I grabbed my robe, tiptoed down the stairs, and peered through the window beside the door. And only rain, pouring under the streetlight, glistening against the empty road. I turned to go back up when I noticed something on the doormat. A small, folded piece of paper, soaked around the edges. I bent down, picked it up, and unfolded and smudged ink, barely legible, were the words. "Mom, don't cry tonight. I'm okay." I dropped it instantly, my breath catching. The handwriting, shaky, familiar, was Ethan's, the same looping letters, the same tilted M. The same style from the birthday cards he used to write when he was little. I stumbled backward, clutching the railing to keep from falling. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped my phone. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The next morning, when I finally gathered enough courage to check my phone again, I saw it. One new voicemail from Ethan. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Static filled the room again. That same soft whispering, like wind through leaves. And then, faintly, his voice. "Mom, don't worry. I just wanted to hear your voice. I miss you." Then silence, and background noise. No distortion, just his voice. Clear, calm, heartbreakingly familiar. I sank onto the floor, clutching the phone to my chest. For 15 years, I had prayed for one more moment, just one, to hear him again, and now I had it. But at what cost? I went to the police, thinking maybe someone was playing a cruel joke. They took my report, but I could see it in their faces. They thought I was losing it. When the officer asked if I'd been taking any medication or drinking that night, I just nodded and left. I knew what I heard. That day, I found myself driving to Ethan's old high school, the first time I'd gone back since the accident. It looked different now. New paint, new sign, but the same football field, the same parking lot where he used to wait for me after practice. I sat there in my car for hours, staring at the gate, until the school lights turned off one by one. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe peace, maybe another sign, but what I found instead was a memory, one that had been buried deep. Ethan's last night alive. We had fought. I had begged him not to go out. The roads were slick, and there was a snowstorm warning. But he had been angry at me for grounding him, for taking away his car keys after he missed curfew the week before. I remember his last words before slamming the door. "Stop treating me like a kid, Mom. I can take care of myself." And then the sound of tires screeching on wet pavement. I never saw him alive again. For years, I blamed myself. If I hadn't yelled, if I had gone after him, if I had just let him go without a fight, maybe he'd still be here. And now, 15 years later, he was calling me. The next night, I stayed up, staring at my phone. Exactly 3 a.m., it rang again. Same name. Same ringtone I'd set for him back then. A soft guitar tune he loved. I answered before the first ring even finished. "Ethan," I said, breathless. "Mom." The voice was clearer this time. "Please don't cry. I didn't mean to hurt you." Tears blurred my vision. "Ethan, where are you? How are you calling me?" "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for everything." I pressed the phone tighter. "Don't hang up. Please don't hang up." "I can't stay long," he said softly. "But I need you to forgive yourself." And before I could say anything more, the line went dead. I didn't sleep after that second call. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice again, soft, calm, echoing through the silence. "I need you to forgive yourself." It played on a loop in my mind like an unfinished song. Was it real? Or was my grief finally cracking the edges of my sanity after all these years? By sunrise, my pillow was soaked in tears. I made a cup of coffee, hands shaking, staring at the mug like it might give me answers. The steam rose and blurred my reflection on the kitchen window, a tired woman with gray strands in her hair and years of regret etched across her face. By noon, I made a decision. If the police wouldn't take me seriously, I'd find someone who would a friend from church. Martha gave me the number of a retired private investigator, Detective Carl Henson. She said he used to handle missing person cases and was known for believing what others didn't. I called him, and he sounded gruff, but polite. "Mrs. Reynolds, you're saying you received a call from your deceased son's number?" "Yes," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Twice." at exactly 3 a.m. each night. And the number's been inactive for 15 years? Yes. The phone company confirmed it. He was silent for a few seconds. All right. I'll come by tomorrow morning. Don't delete anything, the call log, the voicemail, anything you have. Thank you, I said quietly. Please, I just need to know what's happening. Detective Henson arrived the next day. He looked like a man who had seen too much. Salt and pepper beard, old trench coat, and eyes that scanned a room like they were reading a story nobody else could see. He listened carefully as I told him everything. The calls, the note on the porch, the voicemail. Can I hear the message? He asked and I played it for him. A.S. Ethan's voice filled the air. Mom, don't worry. I just wanted to hear your voice. I miss you. The detective's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened slightly around his notebook. When it ended, he looked at me. That's clear. Too clear to be old audio. What do you mean? He tapped his pen. If someone were trying to mess with you using an old recording, there'd be static, distortion, or background noise from wherever they pulled it. This is isolated. Studio clean. So, what are you saying? He shrugged. I'm saying it doesn't sound faked. But we'll find out. He started by checking the phone records. The carrier log confirmed my phone received 2 incoming calls from Ethan's number, but there was no source number on record. It's like the call came from nowhere. The detective muttered, rubbing his chin. No tower data, no routing trace. Is that possible? Not really. Every call leaves a footprint, even spoofed ones. Unless what? He hesitated. Unless it was routed through an encrypted relay or an internal system. But no scammer would go through that much trouble just to prank a stranger. My stomach churned. So, what are you saying, detective? He looked at me seriously. I don't know yet. But if this isn't fraud, it's something else entirely. After he left, I found myself drawn to the attic, a place I hadn't stepped into since the year Ethan died. Dust floated in the light from the small window, and the air smelled of old cardboard and forgotten seasons. I opened one of the boxes marked Ethan stuff. Inside were old photos, football trophies, comic books, and a few notebooks from high school. One of them caught my eye, a small, leather-bound journal with his handwriting across the front. For when I'm older, Ethan. I sat on the wooden floor, brushing off the dust, and opened IT. AT first. It was filled with teenage ramblings, girls he liked, music he loved, dreams of buying his first car. But then, near the back, the tone changed. The last few entries were different, darker. January 10th, 2010. Mom's been distant lately. I think she's still mad about last week. I wish she'd understand I'm not a kid anymore. I just want her to trust me. January 15th, 2010. There's something going on with Dad's friend, Gary. He said he could help me make some extra cash. I'm not sure if I should do it, but he said it's easy money. Mom wouldn't understand. January 20th, 2010. The last entry: if something happens to me, I want Mom to know I love her. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just needed to help. My chest tightened. I didn't remember this, Gary. My late husband's old friend, the man who came to the funeral, offered condolences, then disappeared months later. What did Ethan mean by help? The next day, Detective Henson called me. I traced something, he said. You might want to sit down. He explained that Ethan's old number had been linked, briefly, to a digital archive used by a university research project in Virginia, studying digital voice preservation. The program was meant to create voice simulations for grief counseling, AI systems that could recreate lost voices from old recordings and messages. My heart dropped. So you're saying someone could have used Ethan's voice? Possibly, he said. If they had access to his old voicemails, videos, or recordings. But who would do that? That's what I intend to find out. That night, I went to the basement, where I'd stored all the family tech. Old CDs, VHS tapes, and my husband's laptop from years ago. I plugged it in, and to my surprise, it still booted up. Inside one folder labeled Ethan_2010 were dozens of voice memos, messages he'd sent to his father back when they were working on rebuilding the old Chevy together. Dad, I fixed the spark plug. Guess what? Mom said I can drive it next week. I listened, tears streaming. The laughter in his voice felt alive again, but then I noticed something odd. One file dated 2 days before the accident, marked as private. When I clicked it, static played for a few seconds, then Ethan's voice whispered, "If anything happens to me, it's not an accident." The laptop crashed immediately after. The next day, as if the past had been listening, I saw a car pull into my driveway. A man stepped out, tall, in his 60s, wearing a brown jacket. It was Gary. I hadn't seen him since the funeral. My stomach knotted instantly. He smiled awkwardly. "Maggie, been a long time." "What do you want, Gary?" I asked, my voice cold. "I heard you've been asking questions about Ethan. I thought maybe I could help." My pulse quickened. "Help? You think I need help now, 15 years later?" He sighed. "Look, there were things back then that got complicated. Ethan got involved in something he shouldn't have. I told him to leave it alone." "What things?" He looked at me, eyes clouded. "Let's just say he saw something he shouldn't have, something dangerous. And that night," he paused, his voice trembling, "that accident wasn't supposed to happen." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, he glanced nervously toward the street. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered. "Just be careful, Maggie. Some things should stay buried." And then he left. That night, I didn't expect it, but at exactly 3 a.m., my phone rang again. I froze, staring at the glowing name, Ethan. Hands trembling, I answered. "Ethan?" This time, the voice was different, urgent. "Mom, you need to stop digging." My heart pounded. "What? What do you mean?" "It's not safe," he said, his tone almost pleading. "Please, let it go." "Ethan, I need to know what happened that night." Silence. Then, softly, "They're listening." The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, shaking uncontrollably, staring at the silent phone. My son's voice, warning me, but from where? The next morning, I told Henson everything. The call, the visit from Gary, the voice message on the laptop. He looked grim. "Maggie, I think this is bigger than you realize. Whoever's behind this, if it's human, they're monitoring you." The calls, the laptop crash, the sudden reappearance of Gary, it's all connected. "Then what do I do?" "Lay low," he said. "Don't answer if the number calls again. And whatever you do, don't delete any evidence." But I couldn't stop thinking about that final whisper. They're listening. Who is they? And what secret had my son died protecting? 2 days later, I received an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a small flash drive. No return address. When I plugged it into my computer, a single file appeared. Ethan_last night. MP4. My hands shook as I pressed play. The video showed Ethan, sitting in his car, wearing his favorite gray hoodie. His face looked nervous, his voice shaky. "Mom, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I know you're going to be mad. But I saw something I can't unsee. I recorded everything, the proof, the names. It's in Dad's old toolbox at the garage. Don't trust Gary. He's not who you think he is." The video glitched and ended abruptly. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My world tilted. All these years, I thought it was an accident, but my son had been trying to tell me something before he died. And now, 15 years later, he was still trying. At dawn, I drove to our old house, the one I'd sold years ago but still had a spare key for the garage. It was empty now, quiet except for the creak of the old wooden beams. In the corner, under a sheet, was the red toolbox Ethan mentioned. Inside were rusted wrenches, oil rags, and a small black USB drive wrapped in duct tape. When I plugged it into my laptop, a folder appeared labeled Truth. Before I could open it, my phone buzzed a new message from Ethan's number. "Mom, please, don't open it. Not yet." I froze. He or someone knew exactly what I was doing. My fingers hovered over the mouse, heart racing, and then the lights in the garage flickered. Once, twice, then everything went dark. When the lights went out, I thought my heart might stop with them. For a moment, I stood frozen in the pitch-black garage, the only sound the storm outside, thunder rolling like distant drums and rain tapping on the tin roof. My phone was still in my hand, glowing faintly. On its screen, Ethan's name stared back at me, along with that chilling message. Mom, please, don't open it. Not yet. The air felt heavy, electric, like the whole world was holding its breath. I whispered into the dark, Ethan, if it's really you, tell me what you want. No answer. Only the steady patter of rain and the soft creak of the rafters above me. I turned on my phone's flashlight and aimed it at the laptop. The screen was blank. The system had shut down when the power cut. The small USB drive sat there, waiting, as if daring me to touch it. Every instinct screamed that I should walk away, but a mother's heart is stubborn. When your child's voice, even from beyond, tells you not yet, the word yet becomes everything. I slipped the drive into my pocket, shut the laptop, and left the garage. Driving through the storm that night, I felt something I hadn't in years. Fear, but not the kind that makes you hide. The kind that keeps you alive. The roads were slick, the wipers thrashing side to side like frantic arms. Lightning lit up the sky, and each flash made the world around me vanish and reappear in jerks of white light. Halfway home, I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. Too close, too steadied. I changed lanes. The car behind me did the same, a dark SUV. No plates I could make out through the rain. When I slowed down, it slowed too. When I turned onto the back road toward my neighborhood, it followed. My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles went white. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me, another message. Don't go home. They're watching. I swerved to the side of the road, heart racing. I stared at the message, then at the mirror. The SUV had stopped about 30 feet behind me, its headlights blinding in the rain. I didn't think. I just drove. I took the next turn, cutting through an old service road behind the industrial park, a road only locals knew. When I looked back again, the SUV was gone, or at least, I hoped it was. That I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove straight to Detective Henson's small office on the edge of town. His light was still on. He'd told me he worked late sometimes, because the ghosts keep him company. He looked startled when I walked in, drenched and trembling. Maggie? It's almost midnight. What happened? I set the USB drive on his desk. Someone followed me. I think whoever killed my son is still out there. He leaned forward, his face hardening. Tell me everything. I did. The garage. The message. The SUV. When I finished, he picked up the flash drive with a pen, careful not to smudge it. We'll check what's on here in the morning. For now, you're not staying alone. I'll drive you somewhere safe. I shook my head. I can't leave. If Ethan's trying to reach me, I have to be here. He sighed. Then at least stay at a hotel. Somewhere no one knows you're at. Reluctantly, I agreed. He drove me to a small motel off Route 17, paid cash at the counter, and handed me the key. If anything happens, he said quietly, don't open the door. Call me or call 911. I must have fallen asleep sometime after 3 a.m. because I woke to a whisper. Mom. The voice was faint but unmistakable. Ethan's. I sat up, heart pounding, eyes darting across the dark motel room. The phone wasn't ringing. There was no light, no movement. Just that voice. Mom. I'm sorry I left you alone. Tears stung my eyes. Ethan? I whispered. Where are you? Silence, then a soft sound. The old guitar tune I'd set as his ringtone all those years ago, playing from somewhere near the window. I turned toward it, and for a split second, I saw him. Just a faint reflection in the glass. A boy in a gray hoodie, smiling sadly. His lips moved, but no sound came. Then lightning flashed outside, and he was gone. I rushed to the window, pressed my palms to the cold glass. Ethan, wait. Please. Only my own reflection stared back. In the morning, Henson picked me up with coffee and a laptop. He'd analyzed the flash drive. What did you find? I asked, my stomach in knots. He hesitated. There were 3 video files. 2 were corrupted. The third, well, see for yourself. He pressed play. The footage showed a dark warehouse, shaky camera work, Ethan's breathing heavy behind the phone. A man's voice echoed in the distance, angry, muffled. Then Ethan whispered, they're dealing something, I think drugs, or maybe stolen parts. Gary's with them. I'm gonna tell Dad. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Hey, who's there?" The camera dropped. There was a crash, a scream, and then black. The timestamp? The night he died, that I sat in stunned silence. He wasn't in an accident, was he? Henson's eyes met mine. No. That car crash was staged. Someone wanted to bury what he saw. I could barely breathe. And Gary? He's part of it. The man in the video's voice matches his. A cold wave washed over me. Fury, grief, disbelief all at once. He lied to me. He's been lying for 15 years. Henson nodded slowly. I'll take this to the sheriff. But if Gary knows you found this, you're in danger. I felt the blood drain from my face. He already knows. That night, as I returned to my motel, I found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a single photograph, me, taken earlier that morning, standing with Henson outside his office. No note. Just a photo. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Stop digging. Or you'll join him. I dropped the phone, my entire body shaking. When I picked it up, the message had vanished. No trace in my inbox. No number. I called Henson immediately. He arrived within 10 minutes, his expression grim. We're being watched, he said. Whoever these people are, they have resources. I whispered. Ethan was right. They're listening. He nodded. And now we need to make sure you live long enough to tell his story. We decided to take everything, the recordings, the USB, the journal, and store copies on a secure drive Henson kept at an old police contact's house. But before we could leave, my phone rang again. 3:00 a.m. Ethan, my chest clenched. Henson shook his head. Don't answer. But I couldn't help it. I pressed the green button, my voice trembling. Ethan, please tell me what to do. Static. Then, Mom, don't trust anyone. What do you mean? Even him. I froze. Who? He's not who he says he is. The line went dead. Slowly, I turned toward Henson. He was standing by the door, watching me carefully. Was it him? He asked. I swallowed hard. He said don't trust anyone. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. Worry. Maybe guilt. Or something darker. The next morning, I drove to the police station myself, alone. I wanted to hand the evidence directly to someone official, but when I arrived, I was told something that made my blood run cold. The clerk looked up at me from behind the desk and said, Detective Henson? Ma'am, he retired 5 years ago. He's been living in Florida ever since. I blinked, stunned. What are you talking about? He's been working my case all week. She frowned. That's not possible. Detective Carl Henson hasn't worked here since 2020. Do you have a picture? My hand shook as I pulled out my phone. I opened the recent photos, but every image I'd taken of him was gone, completely erased. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. If that man wasn't Carl Henson, then who was he, and why was he helping me, or pretending to? As I drove away, my phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from Ethan's number. Mom, go home. Check the box under my bed. I hadn't been to his old room since moving out years ago, but the house still stood, empty. I drove there, trembling. The air inside was stale, thick with the ghosts of a life long gone. Did I enter his room? The walls were still faintly blue, the same posters peeling, the same faint smell of his cologne. I lifted the bed frame and found a small wooden box, dusty and locked with a tiny latch. Inside were photos, Ethan with his father, with me, smiling at the lake. But beneath them was a small cassette tape labeled in his handwriting. If something happens to me, play this. I found an old player in the garage, wiped off the dust, and press played. Ethan's voice crackled through the speaker, soft, frightened, but clear. Mom, I know you'll find this someday. Gary isn't who you think he is. He's working with someone Dad trusted. They're smuggling parts through Dad's shop. I tried to stop them. Please don't go to the police. They're in on it. Find Henson. The real Henson. He'll know what to do. My breath caught. The real Henson, and Mom, his voice added, quieter now. If you ever hear my voice again after I'm gone, don't be afraid. It just means I'm still trying to protect you. The tape clicked off. Tears streamed down my face. All this time, every call, every whisper, every message, he'd been warning me, not haunting me, protecting me. That night, someone knocked on my door 3 times. Softly did I froze, cassette still in my hand. "Who's there?" I called. The voice, deep, calm, answered. "It's Henson." I stepped back. "Who are you really?" Silence. Then a sigh. "You weren't supposed to know yet." I turned to grab my phone, but the lights flickered again, and before I could move, the door handle turned. The morning after Grace received that strange message on her phone, she sat by the window watching the rain spill down her front lawn. The world looked blurred, like a painting that had been smudged by sorrow. Her coffee sat untouched. Every now and then, her gaze drifted toward the small wooden box on the table, Ethan's memory box, the one she hadn't opened in years. She felt heavy, drained, her heart an echo chamber of questions. Who would text me from my dead son's number? And why now? 15 years later. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Detective Marcus Hale. The man had been kind, patient, even offered to come by that morning, but Grace told him she needed space to breathe. What she really needed was courage. By noon, the storm had eased into a soft drizzle. Grace was still lost in thought when a firm knock rattled the door. She hesitated, a tremor of unease creeping up her spine. "Who is it?" she called. "Mrs. Whitaker?" The voice was deep, steady, unfamiliar. "Yes?" "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. My name's David Miller. I think I might have something that belongs to you or to your son." Grace froze. Her pulse skipped. She unlocked the door but left the chain latched, peering out. The man standing there looked to be in his late 30s, rain-soaked, wearing a dark jacket and holding an old leather satchel. He had kind eyes, but eyes that carried something else too. Pain. Grace studied him carefully. "You knew Ethan?" David nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. A long time ago." Inside, the air was thick with silence. Grace poured him a cup of coffee, watching every move. David placed his satchel on the table and carefully pulled out a sealed envelope. The handwriting on it, shaky, young, unmistakable, made Grace's heart stop. It was Ethan's. She reached for it with trembling hands, tracing the familiar curves of his letters. "I found it a few weeks ago while clearing out my father's things," David said softly. "He was a truck driver, worked routes through Missouri back in the day. He told me once he'd met a young man on the road, a boy who looked lost but kind. Said he gave him a lift, and that boy left this envelope behind. He never knew what to do with it. When my father passed, I found it with his old logbooks." Grace's voice was barely a whisper. "Are you telling me my son was alive when he met your father?" David hesitated. "I don't know, ma'am, but the date on the letter, it's from the day after the accident." The words hit her like thunder. Her breath caught. The walls around her seemed to sway. "That can't be possible. The police said he died instantly. There was a fire." "I know. I saw the reports. I don't understand it either." Grace clutched the letter as though it were a heartbeat. Her trembling fingers broke the seal. The paper was yellowed and slightly torn, but the writing was legible. "Mom, if you ever get this, I want you to know I didn't mean to disappear. I just needed time. I'm sorry for the things I said that night. Please tell Dad I love him. And please, don't hate me for leaving. You always told me the world was bigger than our pain. I guess I had to find out how big it really was. Love, Ethan." Grace felt her knees weaken. David caught her chair just in time before she fell. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of relief, confusion, and heartbreak. "He was alive," she whispered. "My boy, he was alive after the crash." David looked away. "There's something else." He reached into his satchel again and pulled out an old disposable phone, scratched, dead, but with a cracked sticker on the back. "Found this with a letter," he said. "I charged it up last night. There were old voicemails on it. One of them was from you." Grace blinked. "From me?" "Yes. From the night before the accident." Her mind spun. She didn't even remember leaving that message. But as David played it, her own voice filled the room, shaky and angry. "You're breaking your father's heart, Ethan. If you walk out that door tonight, don't bother coming back." Grace covered her mouth. The sound of her own bitterness echoed like a ghost. David looked at her with empathy. He replayed that message a lot. The phone shows the call log. He listened to it dozens of times. Maybe he couldn't bring himself to delete it. Grace's eyes welled again. He left because of me. Or because he didn't know how to come back, David offered gently. Maybe something happened after he left your home. Maybe someone helped him hide, or something else entirely. Grace looked up sharply. You think someone kept him from us? I don't know, but I think your son was trying to reach you before whatever happened next. She stood, suddenly alive with determination. Then I'm going to find out what happened. I don't care how many years have passed. David hesitated, then nodded. Then I'll help you. My father believed Ethan was a good soul. Maybe it's time we find the rest of his story. That night, after David left, Grace sat in the living room clutching the letter. She read it over and over until the words blurred. Outside, the rain returned, tapping the windows like fingers. Around 3 a.m., her phone lit up again. Unknown number, same area code. Her breath froze. She answered, whispering, Ethan? There was static, then a voice, faint but real. Mom, stop looking, it's not safe. The line went dead. Grace stared at the phone, heart pounding, her whole body trembling. The voice, she would have known it anywhere. It was Ethan. The morning after the second call, Grace didn't sleep. She didn't even try. She sat in her living room, wrapped in Ethan's old blanket, clutching the phone that had whispered his voice. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard it again. Mom, stop looking, it's not safe. But how could she stop now? 15 years she'd spent trying to live with not knowing. And now, when the universe had cracked open and whispered her son's name again, she was supposed to stop. No, she couldn't. When dawn crept in, soft and gray, Grace's phone buzzed. A message from Detective Marcus Hale. Hale, found something strange. You might want to come in. She hesitated. What could he have possibly found overnight? But curiosity and fear drove her out the door. The roads were still slick from last night's rain. The air smelled of wet pine and diesel, the way mornings always did in her small Oregon town. As she drove to the police station, Grace's hands trembled on the steering wheel. When she arrived, Hale was waiting at his desk, sipping from a chipped mug. His expression was unreadable. Morning, Grace, he said, motioning her to sit. You remember asking me to run Ethan's number through the telecom archives? She nodded. Yes. Did you find who's been calling me? He leaned back, brow furrowed. That's the thing. The number doesn't exist in any current registry. It's inactive, terminated 15 years ago. Grace blinked. Terminated? Officially. Which means whoever's calling you is either using a spoof signal or something much harder to explain. Her stomach tightened. Spoofed. He nodded. A fake number. But it would take serious technology to mimic an old, disconnected number. Not something an average prankster could pull off. Grace frowned. So someone is trying to make me think Ethan's alive? Maybe. Or maybe it's someone who wants you to stop digging. Hale glanced at his screen, where an old police report was open. You told me you found a letter. I'd like to see it. Grace handed him a photocopy. The real one was locked safely in her drawer at home. Hale studied it carefully. This handwriting looks genuine. We'll compare it to his old school forms. He looked up at her. Grace, are you sure you're ready to know what we might find? Her voice was steady but low. Detective, I've lived 15 years not knowing. I'm ready for whatever's left. That evening, Grace drove to visit Henry, her estranged husband, Ethan's father. She hadn't seen him in nearly a year. They'd separated quietly, both too broken to keep pretending the pieces of their old family still fit together. Henry's workshop was the same. Half-built furniture, dust, the smell of cedar and varnish. When he opened the door, surprise flashed across his tired eyes. Grace, he said cautiously. It's been a while. I need to talk to you, she said. About Ethan. The way his shoulders stiffened told her everything. The grief was still raw, even if it hid beneath years of silence. Inside, she showed him the letter and explained everything. The call, the message, the man named David, the phone. Henry sat in silence, his hand trembling as he held the paper. "This is his handwriting," he whispered. "But how?" Grace studied him. "You knew something, didn't you?" Henry looked away. "After the accident, I got a message too." Grace's heart nearly stopped. "You what?" "It was a week after the funeral," Henry continued. "A postcard. No return address. Just said, 'Tell Mom I'm sorry. Don't look for me.' I thought it was a cruel prank. I burned it." Grace felt dizzy. "You never told me?" "I couldn't. You were falling apart. And I didn't want to feed false hope." Her eyes burned with fury and pain. "You should have told me. He might have been alive." Henry's voice broke. "Or someone wanted us to think that. I didn't want to lose you to madness, Grace. Not again." She turned away, her breath ragged. "He called me last night, Henry." His voice. "I know what I heard." Henry rubbed his face, defeated. "Then we find out who's doing this." With Henry reluctantly on board, Grace contacted David Miller again. The three met in a quiet diner off the highway, the same highway where Ethan's car had crashed 15 years ago. David spread out a map. "The accident happened here," he said, pointing at a curve near Pine Hollow Bridge. "My father's logbook says he picked up a young hitchhiker a few miles north at a gas station that used to be here." He tapped another spot. Henry leaned forward. "That's 15 miles from the crash site." Grace's eyes widened. "So, Ethan might have walked away from the wreck, and someone picked him up?" David nodded. "Maybe. And maybe something happened afterward." The waitress refilled their coffee, glancing at the papers. "You folks doing some kind of true crime podcast?" she joked. Grace smiled faintly. "Just trying to find a lost story." When the waitress left, Henry said quietly, "There's something else. I went back to the police storage last year. Ethan's car. They said parts of it were missing. The black box data was never recovered." David frowned. "You think someone took it?" "I think someone didn't want us to know how that crash happened." 2 days later, they drove to Pine Hollow Bridge. The place was exactly as Grace remembered, quiet, eerie, a thin guardrail separating the road from the deep ravine below. The forest around it whispered with wind, leaves, and memory. Grace stepped out of the car, clutching Ethan's old hoodie. The smell of pine hit her like nostalgia and pain. She knelt by the rusted memorial marker, the one she'd placed years ago with a photo of him smiling. She traced his name, whispering, "If you're out there, Ethan, help me find the truth." As she stood, a low rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, and then her phone buzzed again to message. "Same number, Ethan. You shouldn't have come here." Grace's heart froze. She looked around. "David." Henry, look. David took the phone, face pale. "How is this even possible? No service out here." Then a rustle in the trees. A figure, distant, moving away. Grace shouted, "Wait," and ran after it. Henry called her name, but she didn't stop. Her shoes slipped on wet earth, branches slapping her arms. The figure, tall, hooded, vanished behind a line of pines. When she reached the clearing, she found something lying on the ground, a silver chain. Ethan's chain. She knew it instantly. The small, bent cross. The one he wore every day. Her vision blurred. "It's him," she whispered. "He's been here." David picked it up carefully. "Someone wants you to believe that." "But it's real," she said, gripping his arm. This was his. Henry stared at the woods, jaw tight. "Then whoever's behind this knows everything about him, and about us." Back at home, that night, David insisted on checking Grace's phone. He plugged it into his laptop, running diagnostic software. After several minutes, his brow furrowed. "Grace, you've got a remote access app installed." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means someone's been mirroring your phone. Listening. Watching." Her stomach dropped. "Who would do that?" David exhaled. "Whoever's been sending those texts. Whoever knows about Ethan's number." Henry's face darkened. Could it be the same people who covered up the crash? David nodded grimly. "Maybe." Grace felt the room spin. "So all this time someone's been in my phone, hearing my calls?" "Not just that," David said. Probably her camera, too. A cold chill ran down her spine. She suddenly felt exposed, like the walls themselves were eyes. She whispered, "Why me? Why now?" David looked at her with quiet certainty. "Because you started asking questions again." While searching through her phone gallery, David found a short clip, one Grace didn't remember taking. It was timestamped 3:01 a.m. 2 nights ago. The camera was pointed at her living room, the same moment the unknown call came through. The footage was grainy, but visible. Grace asleep on the couch, the phone lighting up on the table. Then, in the background, a shadow moved across the window, not a reflection. Not a trick of light, a real, human silhouette. And then, faintly, a whisper close to the camera. "Tell her to stop." Grace covered her mouth, trembling. "That's his voice," she whispered. "That's Ethan's voice." Henry's face was pale, or someone who sounds just like him. David froze the frame and zoomed in. On the edge of the window reflection, there, barely visible, was a fragment of a face, older, worn, scarred, but unmistakably familiar. Henry whispered, "Dear God, that looks like him." The search for truth can awaken ghosts we thought were gone, but sometimes those ghosts are still breathing. The past never dies quietly. It waits, patient, for the courage to be found.